Spoiler-free review of Magolor Epilogue inbound. Don't worry, I won't be including any music-based spoilers either, so keep those headphones on and strap on tight. Kirby, 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 that's the name you should know, and regardless of whether you're a fan or not, I'm sure you're at least familiar with the series from the anime or from Smash Bros. If I might propose a question, what comes to your mind when you think of Kirby games, assuming you've never played one before? They're, I don't know, easy? For kids? Boring? Mediocre? Yeah, that last one gets thrown around a lot. Well, throw no more, because introducing Magolor Epilogue. You see this baby right here? This is the best video game of 2023. No joke, full stop. Okay, well, fine, it has some competition, but dang it, this game is so underrated and deserves way more attention. I'm just gonna say it, get this game. It is worth it. And this review will attempt to show you why Magolor Epilogue is indeed video game perfection. Now, claiming that one video game is better than another is one thing, but claiming that a brand new video game has what it takes to tussle with the best of the best is another gem apple entirely. Let me be the first to admit, all of us have bias towards our favorite video game series, myself included. But even looking past bias, Magolor Epilogue truly shattered all expectations I had for the game, and so to best share these revelations with you guys, I'm going to follow an objective methodology for this review. Said review will be divided into 3 categories of critique: progression, controls, and story, each having their own unique subcategories to discuss. To make this as objective as possible, I will be cross-analyzing the game with the standards that we expect all games of the genre in the year 2023 to approach. Pack your bags, everybody, we're going on a field trip to interdimensional space. Let's go! Magolor Epilogue, first and foremost, is a platformer action game. So what exactly do we hope to expect from the greatest examples of the genre? Your Marios, your Celestes, your Hollow Knights, etc. Oh, also Pizza Tower, now I think about it. That game's a hoot. We would expect fast-paced levels, well-thought-out puzzles, various secrets to uncover, laser-tight controls, and a gameplay loop that rewards skill and leaves players wanting to keep on going. You don't need all of those qualities to make a masterpiece of a game. Magolor Epilogue doesn't have some of these, but what it does have in its 2-hour campaign is so well polished that you would think it was some sort of indie game masterstroke. The challenge of making any video game, and the backbone of any good piece of media, is hitting the sweet spot of its progression. To clarify, this isn't referring to story progression, but rather the progress of the game itself, the ramping up of difficulty, the moveset and strength of the protagonist, and the accessibility of the world. Getting progression right is no easy feat. Your game could be so slow and boring that people yank their hair out and quit before the game has even begun. Or your game could be so fast that people consider it a rushed, frustrating, or lukewarm experience at best. This can make or break the grinding experience of RPGs, or the replay value of minigames. Kirby Star Allies, although a personal favorite of mine, is a great example of what happens when a game that could have been loved by all lacks cohesive progression. Most Kirby games also have this issue to a lesser extent, but by design, as the series' target audience is children. Magolor Epilogue, though, solves all of these issues with ingeniously simple yet deeply interconnected new features never before seen in a mainline Kirby title. These being a skill tree, a combo counter, and a high score meter. Ah yes, the skill tree, final boss of your WOD and bringer of all microtransactions.
Excuse me?
Kirby puns aside, Magolor's magical skills provides the player an ever-changing goal to work towards, and the immediate satisfaction of freely choosing the way you build your Magolor. Do I invest resources into improved levitation for 300 points, or a more magical super attack for 1000? What about getting bonus health drops from enemies? Add some witty banter from our titular protagonist, and then you get Magolor Epilogue. In most Kirby titles, the game starts you out with every potential move you can perform unlocked at its maximum potential, whereas in Magolor Epilogue, your movement and attack options constantly improve, with the stages ramping up in difficulty to match that is fair to the player and never too sudden. I think this more continuous type of progression is where non-stage-based games like Hollow Knight succeed in drawing out longer play sessions, whereas games like the older Mario entries only leave players hooked for only about a couple of levels before taking a break. Magolor Epilogue is able to walk the fine line of being stage-based and keeping a continuous feeling of progression. And that is nothing short of impressive. The enemies and obstacles in your path become far more challenging very rapidly, but so do you. I also really like how well balanced the game's XP system, the magic points, is. The reward gains, enemy drops, and overworld pickups throughout the entire game always provide the player with just the right amount of points to stay on top of things without the need to grind. Although, as we'll see in a bit, the incentive to grind comes from a different source, which is far more satisfying. Certain challenge rooms scattered throughout require a specific ability to be upgraded, guiding players into making well-rounded builds while still giving sufficient wiggle room for variation. Now we get into the combos, and man, was I not expecting them to play such a huge role in my budding admiration of the game. Just so we're all on the same page, I'm referring to a points counter that you increase by attacking enemies and objects within a certain time frame. The combo window is extremely tight and demands nearly perfect reaction time to keep one going. This is all well and good, but if a combo meter serves no end but the combo itself, then all it amounts to is simply a player's pride, and doesn't globally increase player retention. With this dilemma, hear out this proposal.
What if we reward players who pull off impressive combos by granting them the magic points they need to improve Magolor's magical skills, thus leading to even bigger and more impressive combos in the late game.
Kumazaki-san, arigatou gozaimasu, you're a f***ing genius. This system enables Magolor Epilogue to constantly reward skilled players with the ability to choose new tools to immediately use in subsequent stages, while allowing novice players to still pass through levels with a sense of accomplishment and a desire to improve their combos. Need I point out that Magolor Epilogue pioneers in using a combo counter for platforming as well? Usually, one associates combo meters with fighter games, where the speedrunning of a stage or proper positioning of enemies isn't taken into account. Pizza Tower, another beloved game released this year, also has a combo system which contributes to getting higher scores, but doesn't have the level of RPG-esque integration that Magolor Epilogue provides. The new Kirby game is truly special in that regard. Lastly, we should note the high score count. Each stage in Magolor Epilogue comes with its own high score bar, and respective point thresholds to reach in order to be given a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum medal! The main way to increase your score is by maximizing your combo routes and breezing through the stage. On its own, a high score count won't give every video game player the incentive to replay levels, but this is Magolor Epilogue we're talking about here. In combination with a combo system and skill tree, almost every player will want to repeat each stage they enter at least once to aim for that juicy platinum medal. Allow me to expound on this more with an example from my personal playthrough. I just finished my first level and was given this screen, a silver medal and an introduction to the magical skills tree. The gamer in me wanted to get a platinum medal, but I wasn't really sure how. Looking at Magolor's skill tree, I realized I could unlock various upgrades that could help me continue my combos for longer. But I needed a few more magic points to unlock the one I really wanted. So I played the same stage again, this time trying to find better combo routes and even learning a way to extend a combo on a single enemy after using a dash attack, which is pretty cool by the way, that's a useful tip. I then got a gold medal and finally got the points I needed to enhance the stat I wanted. Then I completed the level again with my new powers, this time getting a platinum medal! I felt really good about it, and looked at the skill tree only to find a brand new interesting ability to enhance. With newfound confidence, I entered the next level with determination, aiming to score high combos, attempt for a platinum medal, and find enough magic points to get the next big upgrade. See the positive feedback loop at play here? It's exactly this kind of continuous progression that keeps players passionate about a game. And Magolor Epilogue, although merely being 2 hours long, succeeds in this regard wonderfully. In summary, these 3 new features alone don't do much, but by working together in a way the developers intended, Magolor Epilogue becomes a sweaty palm-inducing, highly enjoyable gut-wrencher that you just have to play from start to finish in one sitting. Once you pick up the game and hit A, you just can't stop. I can attest as much. At the time of writing the script, I have extreme sleep deprivation. Why, you ask? I stayed up from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. playing Magolor Epilogue. 10 to 5 a.m., people. It's just that addicting. When talking about controls, we need to consider the following criterion. How much freedom do they give to the player? How difficult they are to perform, and how the level design accommodates said controls by providing the player the proper environment to let loose, explore, and fight. We should also consider the stats of the main character, movement speed, jumping capabilities, and other options that affect the minute-by-minute gameplay. So, let me be the doomer of good news and tell you that Magolor has never felt smoother to play, and that, in general, he is both exceedingly fair and entirely broken in the best way possible. Due to the nature of the franchise, Kirby has always been rather slow in the air in exchange for having infinite flight, whereas this version of Magolor grants players a lot more aerial mobility through a limited but precise mode of levitation, both making platforming harder and giving the player an extra resource to micromanage. The Mage controls as smooth as butter thanks to HAL Laboratory's Kirby engine, which feels even better now than in Star Allies and Kirby Fighters 2. Floating in the air and then slowly losing altitude due to Magolor's tiredness doesn't feel forced. It just feels natural and makes sense given the context, which we will explore in Chapter 3. Charging up attacks and other forms of movement from our wizard friend hit the spot as well. Many combos are particularly difficult to perform. I found myself misinputting a special attack for a regular attack on various occasions during some of the more stressful levels the game had to offer. But the sensation of pulling off just the perfect inputs after a second or third retry to get, I don't know, like a 50 level combo felt truly satisfying. Aside from just the general feeling of the controls, any good platformer, fighting game, or shooter is expected to run with enough frames to make player input feel more responsive, and Magolor Epilogue lives up to the requirements where many of its predecessors missed the mark. As mentioned in Chapter 1, Magolor's various magical skills progress with the player and with the stages as the game continues forward. This implies that at the very start of the game, our hero is nothing more than an absolute train wreck, nearly useless, pathetic little gato. And you would be right, amigo. Without touching too much on Chapter 3, you really do feel utterly powerless as Magolor as you begin the game. He's extremely sluggish, has the attack range of a BB gun, and can easily get folded by even the weakest of enemies. However, this is not to the game's detriment, but rather its benefit. Early game Magolor forces the player into adopting a defensive cautionary playstyle, a necessary conditioning for Magolor's unforgivingly low health pool. Then, as Magolor continuously enhances his skill tree at the player's behest, the game plan changes rapidly. Not suddenly and surprisingly, but intuitively. You don't adapt to Magolor Epilogue's increase in difficulty. Magolor Epilogue is designed to adapt to you. As you continue, you begin to feel far more confident, and the budding desire to get higher combos drives you to play much more aggressively and quickly. Things keep speeding up until, before you know it, you fall down a pit and die because you didn't have Levitation 3. This was not the fault of the controls nor the level design being too demanding, but rather you, the player, for being too brash and impatient.
Your brain is lying to you. Don't let it fool you.
I would know, because I made the same mistake countless times on my playthrough. The gameplay you're looking at right now are my repeated failed attempts to get an extremely high combo going on an early game stage to get a platinum medal. What I just said is never, quote-unquote, told to the player by the game. Instead, the game encourages players to take a step back, examine the skill tree, and devise a new plan of action that will get them through the level while getting a better high score. What magical skills can I upgrade to have a better chance at surviving? Should I get Levitation 3 like a wimp? Or man up and get better at platforming? How can I pull off this cool trick I thought of better? That's the secret. Inducing player growth rather than being DeRoche. Yeah, okay, I know that was... DeRoche. Sorry, a bad pun, but hopefully you get the idea. In a lot of ways, the game mirrors and improves upon one of its Nintendo counterparts, Metroid Dread. For those of you who don't remember, it was nominated Best Action Adventure Game a few years ago, and the reasons for that shine through in Magolor Epilogue as well. The game actively incentivizes you to learn all of the skills in your arsenal, while constantly gaining new ones. As you practice with your new abilities and combine them in tandem with other ones, you and Magolor become an extremely terrifying threat. Rushing through stages and building up your combo meter becomes second nature in mere hours. By the late game, you almost feel unstoppable. Almost like a final boss. Hey, wait a minute, man, this is way too similar to Metroid. Another aspect of the controls that I'd love to talk about is the multiplayer aspect. One of the Kirby series' biggest strengths is its emphasis and great execution of multiplayer platforming, much like another of its Nintendo counterparts, Super Mario Bros. I'm confident that the multiplayer in Magolor Epilogue works fine, but at the time of writing, I have yet to actually try or see the multiplayer in action, so I don't know how adding an extra player or character affects combos, difficulty, and whatnot. I will say, though, that Magolor Epilogue was designed to be a gripping single-player experience first and foremost. We will touch more on that in Chapter 3. Accessibility is yet another aspect I should mention, not referring to the accessibility of the world like in Chapter 1, but rather by how much you can manipulate the controls. Unfortunately, you can't button map all your moves however you want, but the two control layouts you can mess around with in the settings are quite enough for the majority of players. Personally, I found myself preferring the Type B setup to Type A. I prefer my jump button as B, not Y. You can also turn off rumble, but as a Nintendo Switch player, I always recommend to keep it on as it increases the gameplay immersion. And I should mention, the tutorials in this game aren't intrusive at all, and let the player learn techniques almost completely on his own. It's a little added touch, but as we'll see in the next chapter, it's the little things that truly propel Magolor Epilogue to video game perfection. A lot of people in the Kirby fandom, myself included, were anxiously awaiting for Magolor Epilogue to come out. Not at all because of the gameplay, but rather for the massive lore bombshells on the Ancients and the Four Heroes of Yore and Morphonite and wait, oh, you probably don't know what the heck I'm going on about, huh? This is a Kirby game. Why the hell is there lore in my children's game? We didn't get any of those lore bombshells, unfortunately, and that may be the most underwhelming aspect of Magolor Epilogue. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Instead of a crazy, convoluted, and mind-bending narrative, HAL Laboratory gave us a very compact 2-hour story that's just kind of simple. Here's a summary of the game that avoids spoilers. Magolor gets lost in interdimensional space. You spend the entire game recovering his powers and finding pieces of a MacGuffin to carve a way out. It doesn't get simpler than that. And this may be seen as a negative to the overall experience, but hold now, dear viewer, for the dark matter is in the details.
No, you're playing!
Many games in the genre, like Mario Odyssey, have very simple stories, yet leave such a lasting impact on kids all around the world. Now we will examine why this is the case. I can attest for all Kirby fans when I say we were deeply impressed by the story of this game. Let's start with our protagonist, Magolor. Again, without spoiling anything, he goes through a very impressive and much-awaited character arc. All of the little mannerisms he was given, his idle animations, the charm oozing from his witty remarks while viewing the skill tree, I'm not gonna spoil it, but when you open up the game after the first cutscene, do yourself a favor and press the left D-pad button, it'll be worth your time. Throughout the playthrough, without even so much as speaking a wall of text, Magolor Epilogue brings us to a very close attachment to the titular protagonist. In a sense, we become Magolor. We understand his fears, his worries, the danger and tragedy he dares to defy. I dare say that Magolor Epilogue pulls this off far better than like a Zelda game like Breath of the Wild did with Link. Let me also say that Kirby fans that grew up loving Magolor as kids will experience the game in a far more emotional way than I ever could, since I grew up playing other games in my youth like, I don't know, Mario Kart. All of this emotional crybaby stuff isn't pulled off by the story structure alone. Everything I just said is only made possible by the amazing soundtrack this game has to offer, for indeed, a game is most boring without a stellar soundtrack. Its mood, its intensity, and the way any player receives a video game is highly dependent on good sound design and music choices. Hollow Knight is an example of a game with a stellar soundtrack, having music that fits the tone of each area of Hollow Nest, and just the right amount of eerie quietness at some points to put you on edge. For a moment, imagine Hollow Knight without any of the music, Deep Nest without its creepy ambience, and the Hornet fight without its resounding strings. It would be a far less interesting experience. Magolor Epilogue is much the same, with a great mix of returning tracks, remixes, and brand new compositions that just give you a genuine ear orgasm, my goodness. Oh, and the final boss theme is... Sorry, we'll get to that. Another aspect of the story that we mustn't disregard is the world building. Yes, the story of Magolor Epilogue is quite simple, but the world Shinya Kumazaki and the team built around that story is so captivating. Just look at the visuals. I know it's not some hyper-realistic Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5 type stuff, but the art design and the background choices are really stellar. Everything from the enemy designs to the fallen civilization architecture to the funky chowder effect on the walls to even the free-flowing user interface is just gorgeous. They also imply a lot of things about the hidden lore of the Kirby series, which I will have to talk about someday in the future. Yes, Magolor Epilogue still has jaw-dropping lore reveals, just not in the explicit way that we were hoping for. The game follows a similar theme to another Kirby campaign called Heroes in Another Dimension, but here it's just done way better. Each of the worlds feel unique, and the stage design, led by Mr. Yuki Endo, really does fit with the feel the game was trying to achieve. Recall how I said that the game makes you become Magolor? The immersive world building plays no small part in that process. I will say that there's this one stage at the very end of the game that's pretty darn challenging. All I'm gonna say is, good luck when you get there, because I personally died, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times trying to beat it. Notice now, the common theme about all of these aspects of the story, that being the extreme attention to detail and level of polish to every little thing in the game. Just a little interjection. This is some minor spoiler territory, but I was reading this comment, and fun fact, Aerogree Dimension, Pyre Dimension, Poise Blue Dimension, Locandra Dimension, Ethereal Altar. A-P-P-L. It's f***ing It's Owl! Of course it is! For that, there is no one to blame but the development team at HAL Laboratory. They really went above and beyond in such a short development time, and I want to give them some rightful praise here. Everything just oozes with love and dedication, not only for the fans, because there's a lot of fan service, but to the character of Magolor as well, and the resolution of his sad story. One final aspect I want to cover about the story of Magolor Epilogue is its brilliant finale. If anything, at least watch the finale on YouTube or something, because it's It's just f***ing amazing.
No.
Anyway, we in the Kirby fandom like to say that Kirby final bosses are the best in the business, and I cannot stress how true that is in Magolor Epilogue. Everything that I've discussed here, progression, controls, story, and all, they come together in a swirling climax of shock and awe. It is an experience worth playing completely blind, especially for die-hard Kirby fans. Regardless of how you receive the game when you try it for yourself, I think all of us will unanimously agree that Magolor Epilogue's finale is truly video game perfection. Magolor Epilogue surprised me. I never thought that an extra side mode to a $60 Switch port could get me this excited, this emotional, even. Oh, I forgot to mention that, huh? Yeah, it isn't a standalone game, it's part of a remake, which I didn't really have time to discuss as I wanted Magolor Epilogue to be front and center. I firmly believe that this extra campaign is single-handedly the best Kirby experience ever made, and one of the best action platformers of the genre. The progression is perfectly placed, and entices the player to keep going. The controls are wonderful, and develop with you as the game progresses. The story, visuals, and music egg you on to finish the Cat Wizard's captivating quest. Don't miss out on experiencing the game for yourself. Give that Lore Star Cutter a whirl, and go on one of the greatest video game adventures of this year. Actually, now that I think about it, this game is a truncated multiplayer Hollow Knight. Yeah, is that good? Silks on Copers be damned. The only thing this game gets wrong is the marketing. It was absolutely pitiful. Nintendo dropped a single trailer and that's about it. I would have at least made another trailer that simply played the entirety of the opening cutscene and ended with a slow fade in for the title of the game. Now that would have hyped us up a lot more and got people talking. This flawless game deserved a lot more, and I hope this little review did at least something to help it gain some internet attention. Again, if you're waiting for Pikmin 4 or Tears of the Kingdom and you have nothing to play during the spring, please get Magolor Epilogue. Or, well, I should say Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which contains Magolor Epilogue. Again, just want to make that clear. If you type Magolor Epilogue on eBay, you're not going to find it. But anyways, thank you for sticking around to the very end. Please let me know what you thought in the comment section below. I don't normally do reviews like this on the channel, so you don't have to subscribe if you were just a curious onlooker. I bet that's the first time you heard from a YouTuber telling you not to subscribe, huh? Here's a video for me that YouTube thinks you'd be most interested in, by the way. Thanks for watching, and jam bye-bye!